Hi, Troy Love. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I was just starting to tell about options, and I thought I should get this on the recording. So for those of the group that are able to attend here, that's great. And if you're listening on YouTube, join us live for these. We have a bunch of live webinars on sex and relationshiphealing.com, all spelled out. And you can find the schedule under the events tab or on the online offerings. But there's webinars like this where they are recorded and they are provided, and people can ask questions anonymously. And then we have a number of drop-in groups that are not recorded but are specifically for, like there's a betrayed partner group today, codependent aligned. So Wednesdays at 12:30 Pacific time. There's another one Thursday morning, but Troy does the men's group on Friday mornings. And then he also started adding a betrayed partner that talks about attachment wounds and things on Thursday, alternating Thursdays. So on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, you'll see the list of those. And we invite you to join any that fit, in your schedule. Watch the videos if you aren't able to join us live, but we love having questions and the group interacting with us. So with that, we already have questions. So if you have questions, type them in the Q&A. Troy talks a lot about attachment wounds, and his work has been so helpful. He's done Super Saturday Recovery Summit with me a couple times. So we've got some videos on intherooms.com, for that too. So a wealth of resources, but his book Finding Peace, helps you walk through those attachment wounds and look at how can we do things a little differently. So okay, I'm going to shut up. Well, I'm going to ask you a question.
Great.
Okay. How does one start to leave their shame behind? My sex addiction took me to a dark place with transgender and even a couple of males, etc. Something that I never in my life thought I would do, and the shame I have for that is crippling.
Uh, Thank you for sharing that and your courage in asking the question. So as I was reading that, the first thing that popped into my mind is, well, which shadows of shame are talking to you? And I don't know the answer specifically for you, but I would guess that the judge is showing up a lot. Now, if you're not familiar with the shadows of shame and what they are, that's okay. We've recorded some of these meetings before and you can go back and you can watch them. But basically, one of the tools that I learned as I was doing this process was learning how to personify or turn my shame into characters that I then could have conversations with. It's a Jungian version of psychology with archetypes and different type of stuff to kind of get into the scientific thing about that. But basically, I was able to learn how to. I created characters for me that I could have conversations with, and the judge is one of those. And the judge is the inner critic, that voice that just condemns you for not doing it right, doing it wrong, not being perfect, breaking the rules. How could you do that? Why aren't you trying harder? You should, like, and one of the favorite words that the judge uses is should. And so as I'm reading your question and some of the behaviors that you engaged in that you feel a lot of shame about, I would imagine that the judge is screaming at you like, how could you do that? uh, that is disgusting, horrible, no good, you are a bad person, all of that. And so part of that is understanding that, number one, the judge is not you. And one of the tools that I often have people use is just writing down in second person what these shadows are saying to you, as if you were taking dictation, or as if you were a court reporter on that little machine that types, and you're just literally writing down exactly what was said, and taking a look at that, the messages of really hate and denigration that the judge is saying to you, and then just putting it down on a piece of paper allows you to be able to back up a little bit from it. And then you can ask yourself, well, is it true? And it may feel really true, but it may not be. as you're looking at that, though, that helps you separate a little bit. And then one of the things that I've teach people to do is to ask the judge, well, why are you here? Why are you telling me all of this stuff? What is your intent in trying to put me down? And if you sit with it for a little while, that judge will probably say, well, I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want you to be rejected. I don't want you to be judged by other people. And so if I can just shame you enough, then maybe you'll change your behavior. If I could just shame you enough, then maybe you'll be able to finally say, oh, you're right, judge. I should not have done like, and be understanding that the judge has been trying to protect you in a really a dysfunctional way. And then we sit with that and we can tell the judge, thank you for trying to protect me. I'm going to go find another way of being able to work through some of that. And going to the rooms or going to some of the drop-in groups or finding a therapist or joining a group are some of the ways where you can do this, where you can start to speak your shame around some of these behaviors and hear that the other people in the room say, man, thank you for your courage. I am so grateful that you were willing to share. I want you to know that I think you are a wonderful person, that you're worthy of love, that you have light and strength inside of you. And being able to hear that different perspective may seem foreign, and your judge may be like, well, what do they know? Like, and want to run interference, but it is definitely a contrast to what the judge is saying, to hear people seeing your goodness, people seeing your light. And then once you're able to maybe hear that, even if you can't internalize it yet, then we write down on the second piece of paper, what are some of the truths? And for people who have a higher power, they can write down what they think their higher power might be saying about them. If you don't have a higher power, that's okay. You can still speak what you can write down what are some of the truths that are the exact opposite of what the shadows have been saying to me. And every time I do that, I find greater peace. Every time I do that exercise, I'm able to step a little bit further away from my shame. I'm able to, even for just a moment, hold on to the light that says I'm enough and I'm worthy. And the more that I'm able to do that, the better I'm able to say, wow, Judge, I get it, but you're not really gonna be there for me. I'm gonna find some other ways to manage that. So hopefully that's helpful. As I'm hearing your words that the shame is crippling, absolutely. Those shadows can just like completely hijack your ability to find freedom and hope. And so let's call them out. Let's start to shine some light on them. Let's start to separate the truth from the lie and see if we can find some truth in there that you're enough and you're worthy of love and belonging.
Yeah, I was thinking, the shame is crippling, and Krista Snowden often talks about how shame is a useless emotion, and here it is keeping you. But like your approach of going, okay, the judge is telling me I'm not worthy. Okay, what is the real message? Why are you trying to, and stepping through it in a very different way is helpful. When you first said, and then other people are going to say, things. Wow, you're brave and you're all of these things. And my first thought was, and I wouldn't have believed any of that stuff or early on, because I was like, if you only knew me. So
Mhm,
coming back and going, the judge is back again going, no, they just don't know you. And they, and
mhm.
so it, the my thought was, it's just an ongoing evolving process, but being able to step out of that crippling shame and just look at it like you're talking about, as the observer. Okay, what is that judge trying to tell me? What is the message here, and how can I change? The other thing I kept thinking was, man, in addiction we do all kinds of stuff that we would not do, if we, like now in recovery, I don't choose to do those things in addiction. And I tell, partners this too. It's not an excuse, it's a reason, but it's not like we choose really poorly, but we're not thinking with our thinking part of our brain. We're thinking with the part of our brain that just goes off and does whatever it wants to do, for a variety of reasons. It's not just, I was talking to somebody this morning and I said, we get so focused on in our addiction on what we want to do, what we want to do. And like, I can't give this up. And we don't understand how tunnel visioned we are into this little, behavior, and we're missing out on all the rest, but we stay focused on that. So there is hope in recovery. I'm so glad you're here. Troy mentioned a number of resources. I'm going to give you one more. We run a treatment program for men with sex addiction, intimacy disorders, or co-occurring sex addiction and chemical dependency. We not only work on stopping the behaviors, but we look at all of those underlying issues, and the shame. Oops, I lost my little earbud. And the shame and debilitating things, so that we can help people heal. So, and we do it from a pro-dependent lens. So we're not blaming partners, and spouses. We look at it as, gosh, you're struggling too, and we want to support. So lots of resources. Keep coming back. Okay, next question. This is from a partner. I'm married for decades, and my husband wasn't attached. And my husband wasn't attached to me appropriately and had multiple physical affairs and long-term emotional affairs. Can he really form a healthy attachment to me?
I love that question. And is that possible? Absolutely. I don't think I would be doing this job if I didn't have hope that people can change and people can learn new ways of working and attaching and repairing and all of those kind of things. So absolutely I do. I don't know your particular situation, and I don't uh, so I can't speak specifically to you. I have seen it happen, though. I have seen marriages have a completely 180 different trajectory. One couple in particular, I see the happiness and the joy that they have now, whereas in the past, the pain was so intense that the partner even attempted suicide.
Oh,
So just so painful, and watching them do it, but it takes a lot of hard work. It doesn't magically happen, and there has to be some willingness to take a look at what's driving all of that. But I believe that it is possible, and I believe that there are some wonderful people on this planet who can help guide you through that process. There's a ton of resources to help make that happen. So I believe it's possible.
yeah, I do too. I mean, that is what recovery is all about, and us learning. Like I just talked about, we're all focused on the narrow and everything else, and learning to go, oh, this spouse has stuck by me for decades, and I haven't shown up in the way I could and should have. How can I learn to do that differently? And there are a number of resources, and Dr. Rob's book, Out of the Doghouse, is just one, on learning to build empathy and trust. And so, there are lots of resources, but um, looking at, no doubt, your betrayal wound, looking at, his wounds, all of that. So I would invite you. So Troy did his partner group last week. So watch the schedule, but twice a month he's on the schedule on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, talking about wounds for partners as well. So could be attachment wounds, lots of things, but you getting some help healing your wounds, you're in a different place as well. So, okay, next question. What does a person do with all these new emotions? I so can relate. I finally came clean with my wife fully. Oh, that scares me. I didn't do it properly. That's why I was scared. I kind of trickled truth to her, but now that I have and I've opened all this up the lid, I find it difficult to get out of my own head. I wake up at 2 a.m., brain wakes up, and all a person can do to think about is faults, etc. All my fears that I probably kept at bay are now coming out, and I feel like I'm nothing but fears now.
Mm. Well, that's amazing. I know it probably doesn't feel like it, but for so long you've been numbing pain. That's part of the reason why you were acting out the way that you were. And so now that you've started to tell the truth about your behavior, that's one of the ways that we start to step out of shame. What now that you've started to tell the truth, your some emotions are showing up for you. I'm gonna try and share my screen. So give me a second um, to do that so I can show you this.
Oh, I do
Oh,
we
you
have
have
to
to,
let
yeah,
I was
you
gonna
can.
say I have to change, oh, hang on.
That's
See
so
if I
good.
can, um,
There's a little
yep, I'm
security
looking,
badge. There you
make
go.
co-host. I'm doing it right now.
Thank
Okay,
you.
you should
Perfect.
be good now.
Good. Thank you. Okay. So, uh, so this is part of the finding peace model that we have. And so you notice that there is some anger, there's some fear, and there's some sadness that is there. But what happens, we're gonna go a little further. What happens is shame will cover all of that. Shame like blankets it down. We continue to do the things to numb out our pain and not have to deal with stuff, which creates this pattern of two-step in where I'm numbing and then I feel shame, and so I numb some more and I feel shame. So what you've done is you've taken off the shame, you've started to tell the truth about it. And so now there's all kinds of emotion that you weren't feeling before. So part of that is absolutely normal. And your question is, what in the world do I do with it? Well, you just spoke to it. You put words to what it was that you were feeling, even though you were typing it. That is part of what you do. What we found, the research shows that the people who have the ability to put words into what they're feeling actually are able to manage their emotions better. Mr. Rogers said it really well. What is mentionable is manageable. So when you're able to mention that I'm scared, or that I'm angry, or that I'm sad, and you're able to mention it, and you're in a much better position to be able to process that emotion rather than, well, I'm not angry. Well, I'm not scared. I'm not afraid. I'm no, I'm not. And I'm just shoving it down, shoving it down, shoving it down. Part of this, though, is that it may be challenging to share all of these emotions with your partner. Your wife is also feeling all kinds of emotions. She's also probably pretty scared, and so she may not be the person that you're going to share all of these fears to. I'm not trying to have you keep a secret from her, but that's another reason why having some groups and a therapist and those kind of people where you can start to process your feelings is helpful, because when you're working with your partner, we want to be able to hold space to give them space to be able to share what they're feeling, and I want them to be able to hold space for what you're feeling. But that is really hard to do, especially right after D-Day. There's just so much emotion that's coming up for both of you, and so finding a place where you can talk about your emotions actually helps you show up better for your partner. You're not pushing them away, you've been processing them, and then you can show up a little bit more. But everything you're describing is absolutely normal. It's part of the process. Get a journal. If it's 2 a.m. and you can't call somebody, although there might be people around the world who would be willing to let you call them, get a journal. Write out some of your feelings. Get what's going on in here and put it on a piece of paper. Close the book, go back to sleep. I know that sounds really simple, and it is a simple thing, but it is a tool that you can use to be able to start putting words to what you're feeling. The more that you're able to articulate that, the easier it will be to manage.
I can so relate to this. And I've shared this before too, but I remember early on I had all these emotions and somebody said, "What are you feeling?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just am feeling and I hate it." But what Troy was talking about is yeah, in addiction we numb out, we are disconnected. We compartmentalize, and so we are not in touch with any of those emotions. So this actually is a very good sign that you're starting to feel these things. With your wife, please, please, please invite her to the betrayed partner groups and things like that. You're right. yeah, I mean, now the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, but the trickle down is just so painful for partners. So I really invite her to get support, for her as well. I put a link in on seekingintegrity.com. We have the level one sex and porn addiction 101 work group starting April 7th again. Really good foundational piece. And it's a workbook. And so what Troy was talking about was with the journal, great idea. The workbook might also be a place for you to get specific with, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and have a place to process it as well. So 6 weeks, 90 minutes a session facilitated. It's a really good class. And that may be, a good fit for you as you're coming into this. So, but don't be disheartened. This is uncomfortable, but honest, I can swear to you that I haven't died from my feelings, like it was uncomfortable. I hated it, but you know what? Like I lived. So you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And I know that sounds so trite, and I kind of hated some of those things too. But honestly, there was, just to know that that was sort of normal for what I was experiencing, was reassuring to me that I wasn't, the freak of nature and terminally unique. So, okay, next question. Any help or advice on how I can work through my abandonment wounds from childhood, coupled now with the addiction of the wounds on betrayal and trust from my husband? So, this is a partner, lying, gaslighting, manipulation. Also, does it make sense that these two wounds are separate? I had a hard time when my therapist says that my trust issues are from childhood and I haven't had any problems with betrayal, lying by my family, and I don't understand how they connect. Any insight that would help? I feel like she just puts it into one box. Thanks. That's a great question, and it's complex. So break it down for us, Troy.
All right. Yes, it is possible. Just think about a body and the wounds that can be on a body. So I might have a big cyst over here, like a big abscess on my leg, and I might have a broken arm. Like, so two different wounds. They may be happening at the same time, but they're different. And we're going to treat them a little bit differently. So there are times when the attachment wounds will um, overlap a little bit, and there are times where they're separate. So just to validate that they can be separate. And there are many people who don't have a betrayal wound growing up, but then all of a sudden they find out that their partner has cheated on them or lied to them, or a coworker took credit for something that was theirs, or somebody stole something that was really important to you. And then all of a sudden you have betrayal wound. Your world no longer feels safe. So it is possible to be able to have those two as separate. The challenge with the betrayal wound is that I say it all the time, it's not the wound that's causing us the problem. It's what we end up believing about ourselves and the world around us that is the issue. So if we have a betrayal wound, one of the common beliefs is, well, I can't trust anybody. I can't depend on anybody to be there to show up. Now, it can be specifically directed to, I can't trust my husband, and it can be more generalized, like, I just don't know who I can trust. And oftentimes, when a partner goes to some of the drop in groups or the 12-step meetings and they hear the horror stories of other partners, it's like, yeah, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to believe anybody. So that is it's a normal kind of thought process that is woven into this betrayal. And so when you tell me that your partner lied to you, gaslighted you, which makes you kind of feel like you're going crazy, has manipulated you, it makes sense that the core belief is, well, I'm not sure that I can trust you. And the tools of prodependence come into play, where you love your husband and you care about him, and it's okay to have some boundaries around some of that. It's not wrong or sick to want to care and hope that he gets better. At the same time, you got a betrayal wound, and it's going to require some treatment for you that is going to be different than maybe the rejection wound or the abuse wound or whatever other wound it happens to be. It's going to be different. That one is going to require you to stretch yourself and try to find some places where you can trust others, where you can pull the wall down a little bit and say, okay, I'm not sure I wholeheartedly trust anybody at this point, but I'm willing to give it a shot. And the remedy for the betrayal is trust. So you may not be able to trust your husband today, but who else can you trust? Who else can you be open with? What are some of the boundaries that you can put in place to help you as you're trying to contain that wound? But in my mind, they can absolutely be separate wounds, and we're going to treat them differently.
And I was thinking, I've hung around with enough therapists that, like when people are working on trauma and there's old trauma and there's newer betrayal trauma, therapists are pretty clear that you address a layer at a time and you aren't trying to like deal with everything all at once. So I think really, understanding this fits in this category, this fits in that category, can be really helpful. And sure, does it all bump into the same wounds and things? Yeah, it all hurts. So, and understanding that, can be helpful. But I really do love that, take a step back and what is this? What is it trying to tell me? It's like you're not safe, and so how can I find some people that are safe and that I can trust? Okay, next question. What causes people to begin addictions? Is it that we are flawed or something we are missing?
Uh, I love that. No, it's not because you're flawed. That is what shame wants to tell you. You're flawed and defective, and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. This is purely my philosophy, but I have a lot of people who agree with me. What causes addiction is pain. Attachment wounds are how I operate, and there's 6 of them: loss, neglect, rejection, abandonment, betrayal, and abuse. And it doesn't really matter the type of addiction that the person is struggling with. If you follow and you rewind time and you kind of take a look at what's going on, oftentimes, especially around when they were a teenager, they stumbled on something that numbed that pain instantly, whether that was a bottle of beer, or whether that was masturbation and porn, or whether that was a big old cake, whatever that happened to be. They found something that instantly made them feel better. And so their brain learned something. Their brain made a neurological connection. Oh, I'm feeling pain. Oh, this made me feel better. And so they did it again. And then what happens is that your brain actually creates this neurological network. Think about it the same as if you were learning to read. When you were a baby, you didn't know how to read, but pretty soon, as your parents or whoever were teaching you how to make those sounds, your brain was actually learning and making connections. And so then when we take a look at what's going on with a first grader's brain, that there's a neurological network of neurons that are connected that weren't there before. Your brain was wired, and that's how addiction works too. So it's a pain management tool that your brain has worked on. The weird part is that there is so much shame that accompanies this neurological network. So I act out, I feel horrible, but I do it again because now I feel horrible. There's a lot of pain. My brain says, well, I know how to fix that. So I do it again. It's like, that does not make any sense. Why in the world would I do that when I know I'm going to feel crappy later? Well, why? Because there's a neurological connection that has been made in the brain that says, this is how I manage pain. And so that's how addiction starts. And the more that the person continues to do it, the more complex that neurological network is made. That's why when they say in the rooms, once an addict, always an addict, I mean, that sounds really hopeless. But what they were saying, even though they didn't have the neuroscience to back it up at the time, is that there's a neurological network in your brain. Now, it's just like learning a new language. If your primary language was English or Spanish or Chinese or whatever, and you decided to become bilingual or trilingual, you learn new language. When you do that, your brain creates an entirely new neurological network of things to be able to understand this new language. That is what recovery is. We learn a new language of recovery. We create a new neurological pathway in our brain that helps us figure out, well, when I'm in pain, this is how I can manage things. I don't have to keep going back to what my old neurological pathways say. I don't have to. I can learn new ways, and that's the hope of recovery. That old neurological network, I'm not going to lie, it doesn't go away. It's there. It's wired in there, just like a person doesn't forget how to read unless they have like a traumatic brain injury or something. They don't forget how to read. It's there forever. But I can learn this new pathway. I can learn new tools. I can learn how to live a different life. And I don't have to keep being stuck in that cycle of pain management like I was before.
And that's a beautiful explanation. And I use recovery pathway all the time and new recovery path. And I thought, initially that path is like it's hardly visible. The grass is, overtaking it and things like that. But then eventually, and the addiction is like deeply rooted. It's the easy, one to take. But the more we're in recovery, the more that path becomes the obvious path. And we still may be tempted to take that shortcut, old rut, but that one's now gotten weeded over. So that's not our first go-to. We have a thought of going, well, do we really want to take that? There could be snakes on that path. I don't know, but we can learn differently. So, but I talked to so many people, but I always talk about the underlying issues, and for so many people, their growing up was horrible, and honestly, the addiction probably, was, thank goodness they had an addiction, because it probably was the thing that kept them safe. If the adults aren't safe, if there isn't safety in growing up, that numbing out and escaping into fantasy, whatever, that is the safe thing to do and then it turns on us and it becomes the maladaptive way, but we can learn differently. But, so give yourself grace that here's where you are right now, and what can we do to move forward on a different path. Okay, next question. Somebody's asking about those slides. Those are in your book, aren't they?
They are in the book. You can go to the Finding Peace. You can go to Amazon and look for a Finding Peace workbook by me, and you can get that. There are also several of the webinars that we've done before. You could pause it and probably take a screenshot of that.
And this will be posted by tomorrow. So yeah.
You can also go to troylove.com and take the five-day Finding Peace challenge. It's free. It's an email series, and you'll get those in that as well. So there's several ways where you can go get them.
Nice to have choices. Okay. When in therapeutic separation, what are some strategies to deal with the SLA's attachment needs displayed as excessive clinginess and his trying to push the boundaries constantly?
Yeah. So when we look at attachment styles, what you're describing is an anxious attachment style. They are terrified that you're going to leave, and so they become super clingy. And I can imagine that that's really overwhelming. I have been that person, by the way, and it is scary for the partner. They're like, oh my gosh, I need some space. Hurry up. Figure this out because this is overwhelming. So you're wanting to know what are some strategies to deal with as the partner of somebody who's doing that. Oh, there's a lot. What the easy word is not easy to implement, but the easy one is having some boundaries around that, and being able to say, I'm feeling really unsafe right now, and I need to back away from you, not like you need to do, but this is what I need to do right now. I get that when you do that, that person is going to get super overwhelmed and clingy, and that can be really terrifying. I hope that your partner is getting some treatment and some help with that, because without some coaching and some professional assistance, that attachment style is not going to change. If you ever read the book Attached, which is a great basic summation of the attachment styles, their philosophy is that once you have that attachment style, it doesn't change much. I'm not sure that I fully buy into it, that premise, but without some help on his or her part, then that is going to be the way that they deal with things. I'm guessing that they might have wounds of rejection or abandonment. And so even the slightest whiff of you pulling away a little bit like activates those wounds, and then they freak out. And so part of that is, hey, I know that this is a thing for you. I care about you, but you've got to go do some of your own work, because I have to let you know, I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to stay in this relationship if this continues, because it's so frightening and overwhelming for me. I care about you. I want to help you. Here's what I need, and whether you can honor that or not is up to you. But these are some of the things that I need, and go reach out, go talk to a friend, go to a meeting, talk to somebody. I can't be your one and only. So those are some just thoughts off the top of my head.
Yeah, and addicts are really good at doing the, Rob does this all the time where it's, stay away, but come close, stay away, come close, so it's that very mixed message. And being in a therapeutic separation, all of a sudden you've stepped away. Oh my goodness. But I love what you shared. So holding safe boundaries for you having support, the addict having support, it can get different in a positive way. Okay, what is treatment for a betrayal wound? I trust others, but I have been betrayed and abused verbally, emotionally, psychologically by my spouse.
So again, what the need is for the betrayal wound is trust. That's the need. I need to be able to find a way to trust. But there, because of the betrayal, what do you end up believing about yourself? What do you end up believing so there's the three core beliefs that show up: the identity or the I am core belief. I must not be enough. I must not have, if I had done this or I had done that, then maybe this wouldn't have happened. So we take a look at, is any of that popping up for you? The second is about safety and trust. I can't trust anybody. There's nobody that I can trust. That's like almost a black and white statement. And then the last is a sense of powerlessness. Like there's nothing that I can do. And part of the healing is taking a look at those three core beliefs and then starting to challenge them. And there's a lot of different modalities of therapy that can do that with, but trying to challenge them. I am enough. I'm worthy of love and belonging. Your behaviors were yours. And as a consequence, I don't trust you. But there are people that show up for me in my life, and I can lean on them for support, and I can be open with them, and they do show up for me. And so I'm really grateful for them. And because of that, I am not powerless. I can make choices. I can do the things that I need to do that are in the best interest of the people I love, myself, and those around me. And being able to get that. If it's really overwhelming, one of the forms of therapy that can really help with that is EMDR. Another one that some people use is the family systems model. Both of those are some ways of therapy that can really look at the trauma itself. But EMDR is relatively um, fast. It's a faster form of therapy, and nobody can really explain why it works. But what it does is it's actually reprocessing the way that you view the trauma, and it really does help rewire some of those core beliefs that say, I'm enough. You got your problems, and I hope that you can figure those out. But I know that I'm okay. And so, to give you a little bit of an idea of where that would be, where I would be going with a partner who's coming in, validating that your wounds are real, that they hurt, and rewriting some of the stories you believe about yourself.
And trust is rebuilt over time and it's actions, not words. So lip service is, I'm sorry, I'll never do that again. Poof, but showing up, doing what is said, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. If I can't do it, I'm quick. I try to be quick to say, I'm not going to be able to complete this by 3 p.m. today because, so I'm accountable. But the verbally, emotionally, psychologically, I mean, like if that hasn't stopped, you have zero reason to trust. When an addict's behavior starts to change, partners notice. Like I mean, I get emails consistently from our alumni, partners that go, I see changes in him, and it's not perfect, don't get me wrong, but I see changes, and that gives them hope. And then they see a little bit more, and they see a little bit more. Our clinical director says, tell the truth and tell it faster, because addicts lie to themselves and everyone else about everything, not just about the addictive behavior. So that's, actions speak louder than words. But I am encouraged because you trust other people. So it isn't that you don't trust anyone. You understand that this person isn't safe yet. Hopefully he's working on it. So, okay, how do I stop over analyzing conversations? I told my manager that I could get a COVID shot because I'm a high risk category in the state that they're in, and that is why I took a day off. And I'm okay that this vaccine side effects is not as bad as getting COVID. But then I started to wonder if maybe they might think that I have cancer or something. I should have better boundaries and not just say why I was absent. I said in the past that I'm not going to die from my disability. How do I stop my mind reading and jumping to conclusions?
I love that.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. I just finished reading a book that's really old. It was published in the 1800s, called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon
Oh,
Hill.
yeah.
And it's one of the first self-help books that ever existed. And he talks about this concept. He actually is talking about it as it pertains to temptations related to sex, but he talks about transmutation of energy. We got all this energy that's going on inside of us, and he says one of the things that he learned to do is learned how to channel that energy to get him closer to someplace that he wants to go to. The other version of that is rumination, which is what you were describing. And I learned this a little while ago. Rumination is actually the word that they describe when a cow chews the grass, puts it in one of its stomachs, then coughs it up and chews it again, and then puts it into the second stomach, and so on, as it's trying to digest the grass. That's rumination. And I'm like, well, that totally makes sense. That's what it is. I keep coughing up and chewing on this stuff, and it makes me really anxious and all over the place. How do I stop doing that? So there's a lot of different strategies, but I mentioned one earlier today is write it down. Take whatever's going on in your head and put it on a piece of paper. And I'll talk a little bit more about what Napoleon Hill suggests in his book in just a second, but write it down. So in your story, you weren't honest about the COVID. So I'm wondering what that was all about. There's this fear. What shame shadows maybe were showing up that says you can't talk about the COVID shot, whatever, what shame was there. But also, what are you worried about? I'm worried that, and you put it down. And then you ask a simple series of questions. It comes from Byron Katie's work, Loving What Is. And you can also go to her website, thework.com, and you can download the whole dang worksheet. It's free. Is it true? Is it absolutely true? What will happen to me if I continue believing that this is true? And what would my life be like if I stopped believing that this was true? Just those 4 simple questions can really shift the way that we are responding to this, getting it out on piece of paper and like, well, maybe they think, well, I'll have cancer. Will they think is it true? They're going to think I don't know. Actually, maybe. What would it be like if I didn't believe that anymore? I'd feel so much more relief. Great. What do I feel like I need to do to help clarify this? Probably go in and have a conversation with my boss and say, hey, I took the day off because I went and got the COVID shot and I didn't know how I was going to respond. Boss would be like, oh, thanks for telling me. That's the end of that. So that's a way. What Napoleon Hill suggested is that you recognize that you're feeling this, and then you write down on a piece of paper, you say, I'm going to direct all this energy that I have right now, and I'm going to point it towards whatever it is that you are actually wanting to work on. I'm gonna direct that energy on how I can do better with my kids today, or I'm going to point that energy to how I can show up better at work today, or I'm going to point that energy to taking better care of myself today. I'm going to eat better today. I'm going to take all that energy and I'm transmuting it over to something else. It's a strategy that I've just barely started to use, and it's been interesting to see how
Mm.
that works. So you did great or understanding what's going on. And so now let's just challenge, put it on a piece of paper, ask some questions, and see if we can direct that energy into a more healthy space.
I agree. I've always said the scariest place is when something gets trapped in here. I love the cow. Like I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly right. Because I always call it the squirrel cage, where it's going back and forth between my, and nothing happens to it. It's just a stuck. But
Mhm.
and the regurgitating is kind of like, because I might not think about it for a little while, and then I bring it back up. So
Yeah.
so that's a really helpful, gross but helpful image. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Okay. I resonate with that. My dad passed away when I was 11 without being able to say goodbye. Oh, that is, yeah. And I think this is when my addiction personally started. I turned to food. And as I got heavier and heavier, then I started to collect DVDs and play video games and strip clubs. Yes. Like this whole thing of, yep. And then. And that's why we talk about addressing the underlying issues, because otherwise it's like, and then I did this one, and then I'm going to turn to that one. I lost weight because became my addiction, which then I turned to see sex with multiple partners when I was single. That's classic. Um, it met my wife. Honestly, I was gonna say that's classic, particularly for women. The up and down with weight and sex. That's a really common one, but not uncommon with men too. I thought I could just turn it off. We all in addiction just like are hoping that tomorrow I will be completely free of all this. It doesn't work. I did for a few years until my grandfather passed away, again without saying goodbye, and then I turned to porn and escorts, and the harder then harder porn, transgender escorts, and am I seriously broke? So take it away,
No,
Troy.
you're not seriously broke. Thank you for your honesty. It sounds like you've had a really painful journey. And the loss wound is pretty profound here. I don't know if you've ever worked with a therapist who has ever done the empty chair technique with you. I just did it with a client yesterday who wasn't able to say goodbye to his grandfather. And I'm like, well, we can actually say goodbye. And he's like, what, are you gonna like bring him back from the dead? I'm like, no, but I got some magic powers, buddy.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do. And I had him imagine putting his grandfather in the chair right behind me and then having a conversation with him. And it is a way that is really powerful. And then I quoted Harry Potter in the as he's in King's Cross Station with Dumbledore after Voldemort has just killed him, and he asks Dumbledore, "Professor, is this all real, or is it just in my head?" And Dumbledore said, "Well, of course it's real, Harry. Even if it is in your head, it doesn't mean it's not real." That is the premise of empty chair technique. Even though your grandfather or your dad is not sitting in front of you, you still have the ability to say goodbye in a way that maybe you were never able to say before, and there might be some healing with that. You're not broken, you're wounded, dude, and there's a lot of pain going on with all of that. And so when we start to do the wound care and help heal some of those wounds, a lot of these behaviors are going to melt away. They're not going to be the thing that you turn to anymore, because you'll find more helpful, lasting, permanent ways of soothing those wounds and helping you actually get the connection and the love that you've needed for so long.
And I know you're using broken in a very like shame-filled way, and I'm like, for me, I was really broken, but you know what, recovery gave me the super glue or gorilla glue or whatever to put those pieces together. And where my brokenness was is honestly where my strengths are now. When you glue something together, it doesn't break in the same way, in the same spot that it did. It may break somewhere else, but not in those spots. So for me, like and it wasn't probably early on, but at some point I came to this realization that it's okay to be broken, and that there are ways to heal and mend, and we can have a stronger bond. Like when a bone breaks, it doesn't break at the same spot. That's a stronger spot. So maybe embrace a little bit of, yeah, you have some deep wounds, and there's some brokenness, but gosh, there are people here, there are techniques. I love the empty chair one. There's help and there's hope. You're not stuck. There's ways to heal. So okay, I think I have anxious preoccupied attachment, child of emotionally abusive single mom with narcissistic personality disorder, and absent father, never knew his name. Oh, uh, I'm sorry, but these wounds, I mean, like, honestly, they just catch me. I've been also told by a partner who betrayed me, but is a therapist, that I have sometimes disorganized attachment. Can you explain disorganized attachment and offer help for developing stable attachment? My partner betrayed me with another woman for 15 months. We're trying to start over together. He's doing 3 months female fast. I don't even know what that means, but okay, take it away, Troy.
So just organized attachment style is a little bit it's what that means is it's really hard for you to be able to find anything to connect with or attach to. It feels almost nebulous. Um, and it would make sense based on what you told me. The attachment figures in your life were not there for you to attach to. So it's kind of like you're wandering around this space. I just kind of the imagery I have is like you're at a fair or where there's a large group of people, and you're just kind of wandering around, and you're like, is that somebody that I maybe could connect with? That would be really nice. I'm not sure. So it's not as extreme as like avoidant or anxious. It's just like it feels really nebulous. Like, who am I going to attach to? It doesn't feel like there's anybody there for me to connect with. And the people that were supposed to be there have all betrayed me in one way or another. And they neglected me. They didn't show up at all, abandoned me, or whatever. So that makes sense to me. And so hopefully that can explain a little bit about disorganized attachment style. Part of it is being willing to take a look at those wounds for yourself, taking a look at the abandonment wound from your father and the neglect and probably rejection wound from your mother, and then the betrayal wound from your husband. Those are all pretty profound wounds. And what are the constructs of the world that you have created in order to try and keep yourself safe? And are they serving you anymore? And do you want to change those constructs at all? Do you want to try to do something different? And are there people in your life who are going to show up for you consistently, that are not going to abandon you, that are not going to reject you, that are not going to betray you? And can you extend trust to them even a little bit and try to cultivate some relationships with those people so that you do start to build some attachments with some people that will show up for you?
So the female fast was added, is avoiding personal contact with women as he can assess his motivations and behavior. So now we know. So my brain is going, okay, so 15-month affair and 3 months of fasting. I'm not sure. So I hope he's getting professional help, because like that's the other thing I'm going to say is, because I say what I think. So is I'm kind of going like, if he's the only one looking at this, again, going back to, I can justify anything in addiction. I can justify any reason. I can, oh, that's the reason I won't do that again. So really, we heal in a group. We heal when we're verbalizing, our truths to someone else, and they're going, that doesn't make any sense. That sounds like, lies and manipulation. So I hope he's got support by other people so that it isn't just him doing the analysis. That's my thoughts. But I'm glad you're here. So 2 more questions. What do we think about a husband now who's in his early 60s, who has been all the way to recovery through an intensive lie detector disclosure and beginning his recovery journey, but has renounced it all. He says he was never an addict and doesn't buy into any of it. Since this happened a few years ago, his character is more fragile, more narcissistic and angry, more avoidant. I've pulled away and now we're negotiating closeness again, but he doesn't want to re engage with the topic of sex addiction, only acts out alone. Do I confront him openly about his self deception regarding the past? Is it worth it? Is I've been confronting this at various times for the past 30 plus years, never gotten any traction, only partial changes, but then full regression.
So your original question is, what do I think of a husband who's done all that? And I would put that back on you. What do you think of a husband who's done all that? I'm only getting the little paragraph that you've written, so I wouldn't be remiss to make any kind of judgment about that. What I'm hearing is that there's a tremendous amount of pain. A tremendous amount of pain for you, probably a tremendous amount of pain for him as he's trying to sort through whatever life means to him. But for you, there is a tremendous amount of pain. And I'm hearing that you care about him. You're wondering if whether confronting him about his self-deception will be helpful. Well, how many times have you tried that in the past, and was it helpful? I do believe that confrontation has a role, but it's not my number one tool, because it doesn't usually work, especially if the person is in such denial or self-deception. It doesn't usually work very well. I've never met anybody who's like, oh my gosh, you are so right. I have not thought about that. Thank you for shining light on myself. Like I've never met anybody who does that. Usually they're like, then they push back, especially when they're in a place of denial. So the challenge for you is the bigger question is, how do you move forward? What does that look like for you? You've been with this person for 30 plus years, so there's a lot of investment in this relationship, and I can tell that you care about him, and I can also tell that you've been hurt. So what I would really hope that you're doing is doing some of your own wound care, getting some support for you, looking at what you can do to help you through this, because there is a possibility that he may never change. He may be so wrapped up in his woundedness and not want to deal with that may be that he never changes. And then you are going to have to make some really tough choices about how you want to respond to that.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting too that I pulled away, but now we're negotiating closeness again. And I think of, I honestly think about codependence with you love somebody, and I used broken in, before, and you love somebody who's broken, and this person doesn't want the super glue, so where do you fit into that? Many partners are able to navigate that. They have such good relationships with other people and other support that they just go, okay, most of my husband is great. These are some areas, and I can deal with that because I have all the support. Whatever works for you, whatever you find, in your heart. I hope you find joy and happiness, and peace and support. We've got lots of that here too. So, okay, next and final question. For the anxious style of attachment person, what are some remedies, steps to take when the other becomes unavailable, moves on?
I love that question. Being an anxious attachment person myself, it is, I've had to learn to broaden, to diversify my investment, let's say that, in a healthy way. To make sure that I have a whole lot more people that I can lean on and support. I grew up in a culture where you were taught that the only person that you really were supposed to lean on is your spouse. A lot of cultures kind of have that, and that's impossible. There's no way that one person can show up and be all for another person. That's not possible. We all have bad days. We all have wounds. We all have stuff we struggle with. And so sometimes my partner would not be available to me. And then I had no one to turn to, and then my anxiety would skyrocket. So part of this is learning how to diversify. Who else can I turn to that are healthy options for me? And I often encourage people to start making a list. I call it the list of 12, putting 12 people on your list of people that you can turn to when you need something. I have a buddy who says it needs to be 18. I don't care. When I most of the time ask people how many people are on that list, they can maybe come up with 2.
Mm.
And that's great. That's a place to start. Now let's add 3. And then let's add 4. So part of that is learning how to add some more people so that when one person is not available, I go to the next person and I am able to clearly ask for what I need and see if they're available. And if they're not, then I go to the next person. And I've done that before where I had to go through like 7 people, talk about anxiety rising up, before I was able to find somebody who was willing to spend a few minutes on the phone with me. So it's possible, but you got to diversify your investment.
And I love that you persisted. Like you didn't just go, "Well, no one's around, poor me, no one cares," and all of that.
Mhm.
So yeah, just persisting. But I was thinking too, in 12-step meetings, we're given we get a phone list, and it's a list. It isn't a single number to call. So being willing to just persist, is really helpful. But also not falling into the oh, I'm so bad, no one is going to help me mode as you're dialing the next number. So that's great. Oh, we're done, we're out of time. Thank you all for being here, great questions. Uh uh I will be back again next month. Join Troy Men's Addiction Attachment on Friday mornings, drop-in group. Female, well, no, we made it open to we had
All be trade partners. Yep, all
all
be trade
betrayed
partners.
partners. Yes, we decided it's a new group. We decided we'll try that. So male or female betrayed partners on alternating Thursdays. Check it out on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. Always great to see you, Troy. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
See you later.